All right, let's get on it. It's really quiet. All right, we're doing a demo ride, guys. Ooh, suspension is loosey-goosey as hell. It's looser than the Gladius. Jesus, look at this. I can skip the front tire without even trying. Alright, yeah, we're doing a demo ride. I've never done one of these before, like in the whole group setting. So let's see how it goes. I'm riding a 2016 FZ-07. The sort of Yamaha version of my Gladius, sort of. And the SV, if you will. It's pretty quiet. It definitely needs an exhaust. I think it's quieter than the stock Gladius. Ooh, that feels good. It's got plenty of power. Feels a lot like the Gladius, really, as a matter of fact. It's in the high-vis gray color schema. It actually looks pretty good, I think. It matches my new gloves. Look at my new gloves, guys. You haven't seen these yet. My new Icon gloves. Figured I'd give Icon brand a try. It has pretty decent acceleration, and even in the high gears, good torque. It's cool. At least off the bat, it definitely, as I've kind of said, it doesn't feel different at all, really, than the Gladius. It's not any, like, sort of more inspiring or anything like that. It's relatively just the same. It's relatively just what it is. It's not really anything different from what I've experienced. This feels like a middleweight twin naked bike, really, which is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. I was at least in it. It'd be nice if I had like an exhaust on it and all that kind of stuff, because I know this bike sounds amazing, even for being a parallel twin, which at least, you think of like Kawasaki's parallel twins, the old like Ninja 250s, Ninja 650s, they sound kind of blah, where you get the FZ-07's parallel twin with that crossplane tech, and it's a little different. It sounds a little different, and it sounds a little better. It sounds more kind of like the B-twin, so I wish it had a pipe on it so I could really hear it and all that kind of stuff. But, I was at least somewhat, let's see. The clutch is weird, too. It lets out really late and really suddenly. It's like just suddenly lets out. But anyways, I was somewhat hoping to get on this bike and be minorly blown away by it. In a little bit, just I wish it had a little bit more of an edge to it than accelerates pretty good. Than say the Gladius or the SV or something like that. But it doesn't, which is it's not a problem, right? It still fits in the same category that it did anyway. But it would have been nice if I could have got on it. It would just feel like way different. Which whatever, take that as you will. But I am still having a lot of fun riding it. It's not blowing me away in terms of performance compared to similar bikes, but it's still fun. It actually feels almost a little bit bigger than the Gladius does. The front kind of seems a little bit further away. The headlights a little bit further out, which is kind of nice because the Gladius feels so dang tiny every time I get on it, especially after I've been riding my Tiger for commuting on it for weeks or whatever, and then I get on the Gladius, I feel super tiny, or I feel huge on it. It feels tiny. Right now I'm just cruising along in third gear, shift up to fourth for a little bit better cruising. Handling. It does feel a little, I mean, it feels similar to the Gladius. But it's actually, I want to say, I don't know if I'm wrong, or I don't know the technical specs going on here. The suspension feel is actually looser than the Gladius. Again, I don't know the technical specs of the suspensions here, but it doesn't feel as solid as the Suzuki's. It just feels like it's a little looser, which is good for comfort and all that, but when you want handling, it doesn't feel like it would be as tight and as competent at hard handling and say track riding than the Gladius is. And if I love my Gladius and it has a decent suspension. Obviously, if I was going to use it as like a track bike, it would get a new suspension on it. It would get like a GSXR suspension to make it a little bit more tight and so forth. But if I was going to buy this bike, I would, even more so than say the Gladius, the first thing I would want to do, besides putting a pipe on it so it sounds good, is to change the forks out and put a stiffer spring on the back and so forth. And maybe the spring preload just needs a little bit of adjustment or something like that. But let's see how it feels going around this corner at a little bit more speed. Shifting down to second. Maybe it should have stayed in third. Yeah, I don't know. To me, I don't feel as confident. Also, this is the first time I've ridden this bike, so I'm not going to obviously knee down on it or something. But, it just doesn't feel quite the same as the Suzuki's. And neither of them have sport suspensions by any means at all. But I feel like this could have a better suspension on it than it does. That's just my opinion. This is a review, right? The instrument cluster is pretty, it's not as easy to read as the Gladius, mainly because it has a digital tack, where obviously the Gladius has an analog, a needle tack, right? And so it's not as easy to just see your RPMs, which isn't really a big difference, because as you're riding a bike, you learn RPMs based on sound and all that kind of stuff, so it's not a big deal. But I feel like the instrument cluster could be a little easier to read. I don't know. That's just kind of what I'm experiencing at the moment. But I know it's on a tiny little bike. It needs to be pretty small, so it's okay. It's a bit compact and kind of jammed in there, all the little things, but it does have a gear indicator, which is nice. It has a temperature indicator, also very nice. So I think are we turning back into the dealership here? We are. So I'm going to give this thing back now. I'm going to ride the XSR next. So that'll be my next ride, and we'll see how that goes. But I do like this bike. It would be a decent replacement for the Gladius, say. But there are a few things. I mean, the performance is fine. The engine, the torque, all that is great. It's very similar to what I'm used to. But the handling, I don't know, it just doesn't feel quite as inspiring as, say, the Gladius or maybe an SV.